We're all set. We got Dario, we got Freya, we got our questions. Is tariff inflation finally showing up? So what are you seeing, Freya? Tariff inflation coming through?
It got a bit masked in the headline, which means that there's still a very frustrating debate about it, and it's a little bit equivocal. That's what you would expect to come through. So it's starting to come in the June data, and that's just going to make it very difficult for the Fed unless the labor market is really showing some serious crack. The first two parts of what he said, though, it could be a low number for this month, still a bit equivocal. They like to signal these things at Jackson Hole, and then a big print comes through the next month, and they have to reverse all of that. But again, this is the type of volatility that bond investors are just not getting paid for at the moment. Not a big enough negative supply shock to really sort of tip us into those different into that different kind of dynamics of inflation, where bond investors would immediately say, look, term premium just needs to be much higher. We've had sort of inklings of that in post-Liberation Day, when you started to see some of those correlations moving. But at this stage in the game, there's just this debate. Is there going to continue to be lots and lots of smaller negative supply shocks? And it's really hard for markets to price that in. And that's a sort of a euphemistic way of saying that at this moment in time, bond investors are not being compensated for the level of risk. And similarly, the flip side of that, literally the inverse of that, is that US valuations are simply too high. I wouldn't say it is. No, I think there's this sort of argument that
It's a good thing. It's a good thing from it's not a good thing, sorry, from an economic point of view, but is it a good thing from Trump's political point of view and his sort of his economic agenda?
So it works from the perspective of, if you need to square the circle between some very fiscally hawkish Republicans in Congress and some people that perhaps don't want there to be as many cuts to Medicaid, even though they have cut Medicaid pretty brutally, then it helps to have some tariff revenues coming in, so that when they're looking at that clear expansion of the deficit through everything apart from tariffs, they can say, oh, well, it's okay because we're making this magical rebalancing towards tariffs as a source of revenue. And some of them believe that someone else outside of the US is going to pay that, which is just factually completely incorrect. And that reinforces the massive regressivity of the wider composition of the big beautiful bill. So from an economic standpoint, it's just an absolute, oh, I'm going to use the word catastrophe again.